So, going live. And we're live on Facebook. Hello,
Goodbye.
Matthew from Canada. How are you doing?
Wonderful, thank you. How are you?
Doing well. Just waiting for a few people to show up for our live, which is good.
Here,
And
I'll share it around to here. There we
yeah,
are. Hey,
so it's been good over here. Just got over the Christmas holidays and just getting ready to get ready for uh, the new year, as you do.
oh
You
yeah,
know.
it's that time. There's that little. It's not much. It's like take a rest from Christmas for a few days, and then before you know it, boom, back into celebrating the new year, prepping the new year, all that kind of stuff. So this
Yeah,
is where I was a personal trainer for 10 years, and this was the time of year when I would just get flooded with work because everyone's like, "Okay, I'm committed. I'm ready. I'm going to do this. I'm going to get my health on
oh yeah,
fire." Yeah. So I think that's a bit of what we're going to be chatting about today. Not necessarily getting into the gym specifically, but how this is the time when people are really focusing. I think the phrase I hear a lot is New Year's resolutions create a new you, and
exactly.
but so much of what you and I are about is not about bringing creating a new you as if there's something wrong with who you are. It's helping recognize the gifts in who you are and bringing out the real you, right? It's like
Exactly.
it's taking off those masks of that we put on in the world, the things that we think we should be in the world, the expectations from others, the expectations from society, and really stepping into who we really are, which takes courage, especially with goofy people like us. It's like there's that whole weird stigma and things like that. But boy, life's a lot freer when we step into that.
Yeah, it's like accepting, like because coming up to the end of the new year, we're looking to become the new, improved version of ourselves. And it's like when you think about it, at this moment we're the best version of ourselves. And we may want to be a certain way, but being that best version of ourselves is and realizing that, because
Yeah.
you'll know with studying the gene keys that
Hmm.
it's the shadow side that of ourselves, of our own nature, that makes up you know who we are as a person. So we have our, what we might call, our faults, but they're things that we can look at and say, hey, that's really pointing us in the direction of where we want to be or who we want to be. Not that we're
Hmm.
becoming the new, best, improved version of ourselves, but more like we're actually accepting the fact that we're human, we're not
Yeah.
perfect, and
Oh
we're
yeah.
a work in progress.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And you said that so succinctly on our last call too, where you were talking about, it's in the imperfections that we really can appreciate each other over the holiday season.
yeah,
And and yeah, absolutely. I mean, that's it. Is so often with the shadow side, those are the sides of ourselves that we want to hide from the world because we don't want the world to see that part of us, the part of us that struggles, the part of us that doesn't like ourselves, the part of ourselves that feels shame or guilt, all those aspects of ourselves. And when I first began shadow work, it was really about getting rid of that shadow,
yeah,
right? And
yeah,
and now I've been doing the work of the gene keys for about 5 years, and it's a game changer in that it really is about helping you embrace those parts of yourself. So
yeah,
it's seeing those aspects of self and not judging ourselves for them, recognizing that they are actually a pathway to the gift. So we refer to the gene keys, and for anyone who's not familiar with it, for each particular gene key, there's a word that relates to the different frequencies of it. So the shadow frequency is the lowest frequency of a particular gene key, and so if I pick a particular, well, we're in the 58th gene key, for instance, right now. The
yeah,
shadow of that 58th gene key is dissatisfaction,
yeah,
right? So we don't feel satisfied. And it's actually quite appropriate for this time of year, I think, because people are reflecting on what the last year was, what this new year is going to bring. And so people might be experiencing that feeling of feeling dissatisfied with themselves or
Yeah.
dissatisfied with certain things in their life. And it's about acknowledging that and recognizing that. The gift frequency for that particular one is vitality. That's, that energy and newness to be able to accomplish things, to be able to do things with that real vitality. And so, the old me would have said, okay, I'm feeling dissatisfied. I got to push that feeling away and just move forward. Whereas this work says, go through that dissatisfaction,
Yeah.
accept it, embrace it. That's where the vitality comes from, because someone with vitality still meets dissatisfaction in their life, but they don't judge themselves for it. And I think that that's a huge part of any of the shadow kind of work at this time of year, anywhere where we're not liking who we've become, anywhere where we're not liking what we're experiencing, is that is being aware of where we're judging ourselves for certain aspects of ourselves, because really those aspects of ourselves are pointing us to the gift frequency that we may not have fully owned yet in ourselves.
Yeah, and isn't it funny how we all seem to look at the negative parts of ourselves that need to be changed instead of looking at our gifts and the gifts that are
Mhm.
already within inside of ourselves. Like,
Yeah,
if you were going to write a list of all the things that are wrong with you, all the things that are wrong with your life, right?
yeah,
I'd say, well, don't forget to write a list of things that are all good with you. Like,
yeah.
write your successes from this last year. What are the things that you overcame? What are all the things that happened? How many times were you proud of yourself this year? What accomplishments did you achieve this year? And where did you move yourself from the beginning of last year until the end of
Yeah.
this year? Like, and what changed, and what did you find out about yourself, and all these really positive things that
Mhm.
that you would have found out about yourself this year. You could say, oh wow, I started off here, and now I'm at the end of the year, and
Mhm.
now you can make a leap into the new year. um, and you can say, well, I've actually had a year of accomplishment. But what we tend to do is look at the stuff within inside of ourselves and say, well, I don't feel accomplished, or
Mhm.
I might have been a little bit better, or I might need to change myself, or I and we tend to be our worst critics and the worst judges of our own true nature, instead of saying to
Mhm.
ourselves like, hey, I'm good enough the way I am. I am a work in progress. I'm human,
Mhm.
and I can just
Mhm.
move to where I want to be. I can actually accept myself for who I am, and then move into the new year with a bit more grace. What happens a lot of the time, and this as a personal trainer, Matthew, is people have these goals. Like, they'll put these goals right up here, and they say, I'm gonna be this fantastic new version of ourselves. So they'll go, I'm going to be the fittest, the slimmest, the greatest, the best. And what happens in about a month, 2 months time, they're dissatisfied because they haven't reached the goals that they expected to reach. And if they'd
Mhm.
been kinder to themselves with the goals that they made, then they may have had a better success rate. Just saying, hey, I'm all right the way I am. I'm a work in progress. Let's give myself a little bit more time to
Mhm.
resonate with where I would like to be within my life.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And I'm reminded of a story actually when I was personal training, and I would see this a lot, but one in particular is that, a lot of times the feeling that comes up when we don't accomplish what we set out to do, or we fall back on what we're doing, is that those feelings of guilt. But if we just accept the guilt, it's amazing what shifts. If we wallow in the guilt, it's like, oh, we can go down a downward spiral. But I remember one guy in particular, I was talking with him on the phone, and he was about to cancel a session on me. And I knew he had this propensity towards guilt. And I was like, how are you feeling? And I said, just sit with the guilt. Just be okay with what just be okay with this. I'm not judging you for it. Right. Because a lot of personal trainers would be like, hey, you come on down here now and you blah, 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 and, work it that way. And I understand why people do it that way, but when I did this, I just let him be with that. That was in the morning. He was canceling on me. And then later in the afternoon, he contacted me and he says, I'll be there this evening. And it was because he'd actually just recognized that guilt and actually just transmuted the guilt, that actually a new inspiration came to him.
Yeah.
So it's like we can that's something that we feel into, is that, you know, as you move forward towards these things, it's being able to acknowledge that some of these feelings will come up. And it's like you said, um, you know, when I'm working with people in the Gene Keys work, one of the rules of thumb is focus 90% of time and energy on the gift, and the 10% is acknowledging the shadow when it arises. Because you could go look at the shadow and say, oh yeah, I see that in my life, I see this in my life. But then when you focus on the gift, you're focusing on the lighter end of that frequency. And if any shadow, you become aware of it, but you don't have to go looking for it,
Yeah.
right? So it becomes a lot freer that way. It's a lot smoother journey. You're not wallowing as much. And one of the things that I would say to folks all the time is that don't for a moment think that the things that you have that are gifts to others are things that everybody else has or can do.
Yeah.
Right? A lot of times I hear that when I'm working with people, is that, well, they didn't focus on bringing this gift out this year because, you know, everybody's got that. And it's when I do Gene Keys work with so many people and they see these gifts within their genetic profile, their hologenetic profile, and they look at it and say, well, isn't everybody like this? And it's like, actually, no.
Yeah.
And if you take some time to really own that, it's amazing how much smoother life can be. And it's also amazing how much more willing you are to give that gift to others, knowing that you know, it's very rare that I see groups of people who huddle together who have all the same Gene Keys or anything. Our circle, a
Yeah.
very mixed, diverse series of Gene Keys, mixed gifts. Everyone may be able to do mediumship, but there's each you bring very different gifts to the table to the gifts that I bring to the table. And so I think a huge part of that is being able to see our gifts for what they are. You're an activator, Jason. You're somebody who walks into people's lives, and your endless energy, your frequency, your enthusiasm for life just has that activation for people. And other people, you know, that's a gift that you have and that you bring, right? And not everybody has that ability, but you recognize that in yourself. But I think a lot of people, they might have these gifts, but they're not even aware that it's a gift, and they take it for granted. They think everybody else can do that, or is everybody else is that way. And it's very often that's not the case.
Well, thank you for saying that, Matthew. Because I mean, also it's like you recognise a gift in me, you know, say activation or whatever. But everyone has that a certain gift. I mean, life is a gift, and their lives are a gift. And 90%, what you said, if they can appreciate themselves, the 90% of the gifts that they have within inside of themselves, and like, you know, 10, 20% concentrate on stuff that they want to be working on, they'll be a lot more happier. They'll be a lot more
Mm,
realistic in what they want to achieve in you know the next year, in the year to come. I
yeah.
mean, I believe, you know, around this year. I mean, I've been speaking to people. There's people that are emotional. The people, you know, they're reflecting on the year, reflecting on themselves, reflecting on emotions, and reflecting on how they could, you know, steer their ship towards a more positive course of action. And what I know is, like I said before, is they set the goals too high. But if only they gave themselves like that little bit more room to say, okay, I can give, you know, I can give 100%. Everyone gives 100%. I mean, I give 100%, but not make you know, themselves have to jump over such massive obstacles to become this new thing, and then feel
Mm,
like in January, February they haven't quite achieved it. If
yeah.
only people could accept themselves as you know, the best version of themselves today, and say, right, I'm fine the way I am. Right, I'm not perfect. I'll be moving on tomorrow. I'll be probably be a better version of myself. I'll still have stuff to work on, but isn't it good to like just live within that beingness of yourself, where you can just like
Yeah.
just be yourself? And like the gift is that beingness of yourself. The gift
Yeah.
is that becoming and being that best version of yourself, which means I'm not going to be someone that's analytical and into gene key stuff like Matthew, but that's Matthew's gift. Like Matthew
Yeah.
will research and he'll do science and he'll research all this stuff and he'll come up and there'll be fantastic information. But my gift would be inspiration, and
Yeah.
it's like, I find that within even within partnerships, right? My wife used to look at me and said, "Well, I won't bother doing any mediumship because you do that." And I said, "But you're ignoring your gift." And it's only when she looked inside and started developing herself, she realized that she had a gift that was
Hmm.
just as worthwhile developing as what
Yeah.
I had as a medium. And that's
Yeah.
when what you were saying, Matthew, when you said some people look at other people and think, well, they're better, so why should I develop myself? And I'm
Yeah.
like, no, it's all about looking within inside and seeing what you've got at home, in your home base, in what you've been born with, in your gifts, and sharing that. And you can't, a gift is not a gift until you can give it away.
Yeah.
You know.
And what you were saying there too is huge about recognizing the differences there, because people do bring different things to the table. And I remember when I worked with one guy about 10 years ago in a business partnership, and I just loved who he was, right? And so I was like, oh, I want to be more like that. But he was so far from my true nature that anything that I would do, I would just have been forcing myself to become that. and and so it's about really understanding your way, because you mentioned the gene keys, and yes, there's the books, there's the audios, and there's people who do it that are analytical, and there's people who do it that aren't. And then someone like Nicole comes in. She's not a book reader, but she loves the wisdom that comes through the work of the gene keys. So what does she do? She tunes into the field, she tunes into the information, and she'll
Yeah.
paint the shadows, she'll paint the gift, she'll paint the highest essence of these gene keys, and she'll get so much from them. They'll activate her, the paintings will activate her, they will cause her to contemplate. She's never picked up the book, but she still is getting an understanding of it. And I
Yeah.
think that's it, is like, we're encouraged by society in general, set goals for the year, and I absolutely get that. The challenge is when we set goals that really go against who we really are. We set goals because we think that's what we should do. We set goals because those are the expectations other people have of us. And, like using personal training as an example, I never trained any two people the same way, because everybody has different body types, right? Different natures
Yeah.
respond to different exercise in different ways. It's the same with these kinds of teachings too, right? Is that you will find the ones that truly help you to become the true essence of yourself in the world. And it's when you if you are setting goals, when you understand who you are, and you can stretch yourself with those goals for sure. But if you're stretching those goals and it doesn't include an element of who you are, who your true nature is, one of the things I discovered when doing my gene keys, doing it for my business partner 10 years ago, and myself, was realizing that he was the creator, he was the initiator, he had tons of ideas. I always got frustrated because he never followed through for them. And then
Yeah.
I realized, but my natural ability is organization, and I can
Yeah.
do that kind of stuff and management. So it's like, if I actually just settled into my true nature, maybe things would have been smoother. Things played out exactly as they played out. There was a perfection in all of that. But it's that being able to understand that we bring. It's like, what's your gift to a team? What's your gift to a group? And sometimes you can't see that for yourself. So you can do your gene keys, your hologenetic profile. You can do it free. That's a good way to take a look and explore it. But you could also ask your friends,
Yeah.
what are the gifts that you see in me? What are
Yeah.
the things you see in me? Because if you're setting these goals, but you're not tying in your personal gift into that, you might find yourself struggling somewhat. But when you embody your true nature as you move towards those goals, yes, you're stretching yourself and you're stretching what you're becoming, but you're not doing it from a place of, I'm not good enough, so I'm going to stretch myself. You're coming from a place of, I recognize the gifts I bring into the world. how can I use these gifts to bring this vision about?
Exactly, exactly. I mean, it's like what you said, and like everyone has a different gift, Matthew. And you're like, when you think about how you say, "Oh, you see my gift," so you say Jason has activation. Jason can help with activation in people's gifts. But then
Mm.
you've got Matthew. That's you've got like all this like how to put other things into action in a different way. And when you can combine them and appreciate each other within the gifts that they got, then it's a good thing. It's a good thing.
Mm.
So yeah, when we look at this, like moving into the new year, and we're like, thinking about, the new step into the real you, right? The self-realization. I mean, Sandra's written something. Know thyself and thrive
Mm.
on those self, though the self, other selves, who we really are, and opposed to how we perceives ourselves, not ego, come from spirit, do self-discovery. Gene Keys, your external life just gives you the awareness of changes within. Thanks for the insights. Yes. And when you think about that, like, it's all about, taking stock check of what you've got within yourself, what you've got within you, whether you follow astrology or you follow the gene keys or you follow any other sort of thing like that. And you say, okay,
Mhm.
you're looking for something that's going to give you reflection of who your true self is. And
Yeah.
when you listen to your heart, and when you listen to your feelings and your soul and your inner self, you can find that part in yourself of like, um, that that true nature that's going to say, hey, this is who I am.
Mm.
This is what I agree with. This is who I am. Some people love going out and socializing with loads of people. Some people like to just have their quiet time and quiet space. But
Yeah.
even that quiet time and quiet space, Matthew, that's a gift, isn't it?
Oh, absolutely.
You
Yeah.
know?
That's a gift that we don't give ourselves enough. And it's also, if you're considering how the new year is going to be, I love what Sandra was writing there. We'll have to bring Sandra on here sometime. She needs to be on this show at some point and share some of that wisdom.
Yeah.
She's a character, aren't you, Sandra?
Yeah.
No, but Jason and I both met Sandra, love her to pieces.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's that um, with the gift piece too. It's like when we take that time to go inwards, when we really do, it's just like how are we? I had to really do this over the Christmas break. Actually, was realizing that there was still this element of myself that had this fear of doing nothing, right?
Yeah.
That if I'm going to make changes in my life, I have to do something,
Yeah.
right? And it doesn't mean that we don't do things. It just means different place. Like when we're doing the nothing, when we can sit there in just total silence.
I think we're losing you, Matthew. Oh dear. So we've lost Matthew. He might be back in a minute. But yeah, I think what he was trying to say was that the gifts and seeing that gift within inside of yourself, but recognizing it. And when you recognize that gift within inside of yourself, and you can take it to the level that you say you feel comfortable with, and what is that level, and Matthew's back, and
Woo-hoo. I was talking to myself there for a minute.
well, it must be, obviously the internet in Canada must have been a bit choppy, but you're back. So
Oh, good.
I was just mentioning about the gifts, Matthew, and how you can, when you recognize your own gifts and what they are, who you are, what you're good at, and where you can take that to the next level. But in the best way that you can, in the
Yeah,
best way that you can,
yeah, true.
self acceptance and seeing what you do. I mean, sometimes I have some sort of rituals around this time of year. Like I'll say, right, okay, what do I want to let go of? What am I not positive about myself? And I know some other people do as well. And um, um, I know my sister likes to write down, and this, if anyone else wants to try this, is good. She'll write down all the negative things about herself and about her life which she wants to let go of, and she'll have a little fire ceremony, and she'll just drop them into the fire, and then they'll
mm,
burn, and then she'll be letting go of them, consciously letting go and saying, now I'm going to appreciate myself more. Now I'm going to step into my gifts more, and now I'm going to jump into that better version of myself. Um,
mhm,
and I know there's a lot of other people that like to do things. I mean, like what we used to do, like with fireworks. And I know in my past, well, like before I learned to step into my best version of myself in different methods. I used to like buy fireworks because it was like banging out the olds. They used to say like
mhm.
letting go of the negative was like letting off the fireworks to bang out the old and appreciate the new. And it's like when I realized that that can happen in 1 second. I know, like I've had people in coaching sessions with me, and when you just say, okay, now step with me, feel into your feelings and step into that positive side of yourself, people are amazed at what that does to them. Do you remember when I did that with you, Matthew? I've done it with you and Nicole, where I said got you to step into your best version of yourself. Have I lost you again? Well, he might remember next time he comes back. Obviously, the internet's not right, but I was having these experiences where, people could step into the best version of themselves, and it can be quite effortlessly, more effort, better than how this internet connection in Canada is doing. But yeah, when you think about it, we can be our worst critic, our worst judges of ourselves, when really if we were just going to look at ourselves and think, well, I'd rather have this, I'd rather be this best version of myself as I am now. If you were to make a list of things about yourself that are the best things that you've done this year, you'd find, okay, that's the best version of myself, that's the best version this year. So if that's it, then you could accept the fact that um, that that you can step into that best version of yourself, right? Are you back, Matthew, on another computer?
Yeah, I'm
So
back. Yeah,
can
I'm not
can
sure what I missed there, but I caught the end of it. I
continue,
think
and I'll
we're
just
having
try and
some.
get rid of the other one. Um,
We must have a storm or something. Oh,
you,
there's two versions of me up there.
yeah,
Oh,
I
I
like
guess
that.
I just want to use the best version of me.
I'm going to leave that one in there because that was the older version of you, and now you've stepped into this
Exactly.
new version. I don't think there's anything wrong with it at
No,
all.
no, actually, all I did was change the frequency because I
Okay,
stepped from the 2G network to the 5G to
yeah,
see, and the reception seems better. So, um, it's just a change in frequency. That's all that happened there. So
okay.
nice when technology can give us an illustration there. That might be a little bit of spirit sense of humor there too.
I
Yeah, I'm,
think
I'm not
so.
sure what I missed there. Um, and one of the things that I'd wanted to say, and I don't know if you mentioned it, is because I know for myself that, and going back to what I'd said about and what you're saying too, I think about recognizing our gifts and stuff is that um, there's things that people can be good at, but it doesn't necessarily mean it's their highest calling per se. And so sometimes people can get caught up in that. It's like because I was good at engineering, and like you said, I've got that analytical mind. But then if I compare myself to where other people I know who've taken engineering and things like that much further, it's just like, oh, way too complex,
Yeah,
right? So there's that analytical mind up until a point.
yeah,
Um, but it was like, for me, it was like I was going down that path. I was good at it. I could see I had gifts, but it needed some sort of realigning. So now it's like I bring that in. There's that element of, yeah, I've studied under many people, I've learned things knowledge wise, etc. But ultimately, it's the gift is being able to, like here, we don't come on with a script and all prepared. A big part of it for me has been stepping into that trust in spirit and that connection in that. So all that knowledge is available to me if I need to pluck it out at some time. But it's like it feels much more fulfilling in that sense. And so even if you don't feel like you're quite in the right space, sometimes it's just a slight shift in frequency, like we saw, that can bring us back in alignment in such a way that it feels right. And so it's like, because I never knew. I never knew that I could do mediumship until I've spent the last 6 years living with Nicole, who in the beginning didn't know she was a medium, right? So it's like,
Yeah.
that's the other thing too with all of this is sometimes, be open to gifts that you're not even aware of in yourself, because as your frequency shifts and change, as you do your shadow work, as you own the gifts that others see in you and that you see in yourself, you raise your frequency, and as you raise your frequency, you start to open up this whole new superhuman version of you with gifts that you weren't even aware of. And so, if you look back on my life, it looks like, I did engineering at university. I was a personal trainer. I was a gratitude, did public speaking, now doing gene keys, and there's been drone work. It looks pretty inconsistent, and that's the way it can look to people in the
Yeah.
world. But actually, part of the gifts that I've and the understanding from the gene keys work is like that was always going to be a part of who I am. It's not the inconsistency; it's the gathering of information. It's the gathering of self, combining it all together into my own unique version of me. Just like Jason with your back. I mean, you were a cook for 10 years, and I totally see how you stir the pot today,
Yeah.
right? It's all in there.
Yeah.
So it's like all of our past
Yeah.
adds up when we start to reflect on it, and we can see, oh, that was me coming from my gift. But as I gain more awareness, so it's like for me, owning at first when people would talk about me as having an analytical mind and an intellect, it's like I saw that as an obstacle to me achieving higher states of consciousness. So I would try and move away from it instead of owning it. And it's like, okay, I've got this intellect. It helps me remember facts and figures and all those kinds of things. But there's a higher frequency of expression of that. And it's only when I step into that that I truly feel heart centered, because I had all the knowledge in my head, but that's where I was stuck all the time, was in my head, right? And
Yeah.
it was about, oh, it's bringing that
I,
into the heart. And so
I
I
know how that
trust
feels.
so much that wherever people are right now, that there is an aspect of the gift frequency expressing through them in the work that they do, in the relationships.
Yeah.
And all it is about tuning into higher frequencies of that. It's not about changing who you are fundamentally. It's about recognizing these gifts and strengths, the things that light you up,
Yeah.
and being more of that and doing more of that.
Yeah, I know what you mean. It's like stepping into that, let's say, soul possibility, like that feeling
Yeah.
within inside of yourself, that soul possibility, that gift. That if you
Mhm.
give yourself that time to reflect in it and look within, you will find it. And just because other people can paint doesn't mean that you're not a fantastic painter. And just
Yeah.
because other people can do other things like speak or speak
Yeah.
inspiredly doesn't mean you're not a good inspired speaker. And it's like
Yeah.
becoming comfortable with what you have. So because it's got to about the time now, Matthew. It's like
Yeah.
if I
Yeah.
just
Just noticing
reflect
that.
upon it, like if people reflect upon that last year, what they've been doing, reflect on all the things that they've been. Look at the successes that you've achieved this year. Look at the good things that you've achieved this year. Look at the way you've handled things, and like you may want to improve things, and you may want to just like let go of old habits, but try to make little shifts over the whole year instead of trying to make a massive leap at the end of the
Mhm.
year.
Yes.
Would you
Yeah.
like to
Exactly.
to finish on something, Matthew?
No, exactly what you said there. I think it is. It's not, the expression that people might want to say is slow and steady wins the race, but it's not necessarily that, because when we recognize that time is an illusion, there is no fast or slow anyway.
Yeah,
Um, but being able to, it's like, what's the next step I need to take?
yeah,
I think as Martin Luther King talks about, it's like people see the whole staircase and freak out,
yeah,
but it's like all you ever need to do is take the next step.
yeah,
And it's and the next step could be, what are my gifts, and just even asking that
yeah,
question, because once you realize, like you said at the beginning, and I think that's what I would end with too, is that once you realize what your true gifts are, and you can give them without an expectation of even somebody receiving, that you can give that gift even if it's not accepted, when you can give without, because you want to, when you feel, when you're aware of your gifts and you just know them so deeply, it's like you just want to share it.
yeah,
And whether it becomes your profession or whether it's in your relationships or whatever it is, you will just feel more full and fulfilled coming from that space. And it's not making the huge leap. Even if you are setting yourself massive goals,
Yeah.
nothing wrong with that. It's what's the next step in
Yeah.
that.
Yeah, great. So, wonderful. So this has been another good talk, Matthew. And I think you reminded me at the beginning, you reminded me something about, hey, people can get in contact with us online if they want to
Yes.
do Zoom sessions or they want to do Skype
Yeah.
sessions or any coaching sessions. Matthew also does wonderful stuff with the Gene Keys online as well. And you can probably see some live sessions on his page. So if you look on the link, I think I'm going to ask Matthew to put a link from the Gene Keys down there, because for me it was an eye opener. I mean, I've done a lot of reflection, a lot of work on myself, but there's still little bits you think, oh, I didn't realize that part of me was there. And it is
Yeah.
nice to look at these things and say, hey, that's another little thing that I can work on, but it's also another gift that I didn't realize was a gift. I mean,
Yeah.
but
Yeah,
before
because
we,
it's not just one gift. You don't
yeah,
just bring one gift, Jason.
no,
You bring lots. There's your magnetism. There's your beingness.
yeah, yeah,
There's your equilibrium,
yeah,
and all of them, right?
all that stuff. So I'm going to say thank you to Matthew, and we'll look forward to scheduling another one in the new year. I wish everyone a very happy new year and have a good
Yeah.
jump from this year to the next, and look forward to seeing you next year.
Yes. Have a happy, happy New Year. However you do it.